We are really excited to kick today off. Once again, we have a lot of richness, a lot of wisdom, a lot of expertise to share, and we are really excited because on day 2, what we get to do is we get to go deep into place. I'll say a little bit about that before we close, but where I wanted to start briefly is to do a little bit of reflecting on what we heard yesterday. You know, for the past 2.5 years, the wisdom has been in the Zoom. But yesterday, the wisdom was in the room, right? All right, and so, as we reflect on the wisdom in the room yesterday, just a couple of themes I want to knit together. As I was reflecting on the conversation with Karen and Kim and Starsky, I was thinking about how, in so many beautiful and elegant ways, they knitted together really this personal and professional story, but how much their lives and their careers really lived at the intersection of making the personal professional. And in doing that, what they also, at the same time, I should say all three of them were doing, was forging a positive self-identity out of pain and in spite of the systems that they needed to navigate. In doing that work, they, at the same time, were entering into new spaces, becoming parts of organizations. They were doing the work that was about also at the same time creating and building spaces for others. They were making sense, again, out of pain and trauma. They were connecting their pain and their trauma to a higher purpose, to a higher calling. And in doing so, they were also calling forth the next generation of leaders. And Karen so beautifully reminded us of, while doing this, keeping a keen eye on the systems and how we hold systems accountable to continue to transform in more equitable and just ways. And so in many ways, we open with a teaching and learning about the power and the value of meaning and purpose, and how when young adults are able to walk into their purpose, function in their power, and heal, our sister Jocelyn reminded us of this so eloquently yesterday, creating spaces to heal, that in doing this, it also expands the space. Once again, it calls the next generation into the movement. So then after that, we went to Angela and Fred, and they talked once again about how we, in doing this personal work, can pull back the aperture in ways that expand and grow the movement. So while both plenaries, of course, placed a spotlight on intergenerational organizing and movement building, Fred and Angela pressed upon us to consider how we also have the responsibility to broaden the movement. Angela calls us to move from transactional solidarity to transformative solidarity, and Fred doubled down on this point when he reminded us that we must hold multiple truths. We need to have different conversations. Fred called on us to own the struggle of our partners, to see ourselves reflected in the trials, the tribulations, the struggles of other communities, and be so mindful, so intentional about how we show up in solidarity with other communities. And remember that our collective work is about transforming systems that at their root assign value and hierarchy to human lives. This is what Angela said. And so together, they called on us to have shared language so that we can share the same narrative, we can speak to the same narrative, all aimed at achieving a shared vision. So as we reflect on the themes from the first and second plenary, themes around language, narratives, vision, and solidarity, it's worth noting that our community college presidents discussed these same concepts, these same themes, in the context of transforming the post-secondary system. Both leaders were clear, Dr. Pam Ettinger and Dr. Russell Laurie Hart, that the community college system does not have shared language or even a shared vision for serving students, even as they both noted how much we all understand exactly what our students need. Pam reminded us that the highest call we have is to reimagine and rebuild the post-secondary system while also getting super practical and tactical about what works and what our students need. Pam talked about giving $7,000 more a year of grants, not loans, so that students don't have to work 15 hours. Russell talked specifically about investments to expand mentorship, tutoring, navigators, and engage pedagogy. And even Dr. Ettinger talked specifically about forgiving student loan debt as a way to ensure that students can show up, because the barriers to achieving their education goals are being actively removed by the system. So I say that to say that, yeah, they spoke to lofty ideas, right? Lofty themes, but they also got super tactical about what it takes to serve and meet the needs of Black and brown students, and most especially in the face of challenges brought on by the pandemic. Just to recall again some of what we heard them say and try to connect the dots between the morning, what we heard from our opening plenaries from Kim and from Starsky and from Karen, and then going to Angela and to Fred. There's this one thread, there's this one piece that I want to connect that we also heard by the time we got to Pam and to Russell, and it came specifically from Pam. All of our speakers talked about solidarity, and it was Dr. Pam Ettinger who brought the message home when she called on us to get practical and tactical about serving Black and brown students, because what she said is that when we do that work, there is a solidarity dividend that returns a benefit to everyone. Let me say that again. Pam said, when we serve our most vulnerable youth and young adults, this was the same thing that Angela talked about. When you are thinking about how to meet the curb cut effect, is what she talked about and what Fred talked about. When you design for people with the greatest needs, there is a solidarity benefit that returns a dividend to everyone. So again, Karen, Kim, and Starsky spoke in elegant and compelling ways about this dividend, and then Angela and Fred framed the power and value of this dividend, and then our community college presidents talked about the practical strategies and knowledge, how meeting the needs of our students extends this dividend to everyone. So if yesterday was about understanding history, intergenerational organizing, and movement building, some of the most important ideas to hold top of mind and top of heart as we organize today for a more inclusive future, then our conversations today, beginning with this morning, is looking specifically at how we learn in a place to go deeper into community. We will begin with understanding state-level efforts, but we will close by getting specific to efforts in San Francisco. In these themes, understanding history, intergenerational connections, vision, voice, narrative, and the type of solidarity that is transformative will all be present in our conversations today. And with that, I want to invite Kriya Gomez and all of the panelists to the stage.
Good morning. Can everybody hear me? All right. Good morning. Excuse me, sorry. No worries. So, solidarity benefits, the dividend. We're going to keep talking about that today with our awesome panelists up here. So real quick, I think it's important to get an understanding of who we're talking about, right? We're talking about Opportunity Youth. We're going to be talking about those solidarity benefits that we create when we create meaningful and really well thought out partnerships between government agencies and local programs, right? We're going to be talking about honestly, the amazing work that California is doing to create opportunities for young folks that right now have been hit really hard by the pandemic, and honestly have been hit hard because of laws that we've created and systems that we have reformed that have not always panned out in their benefit. Real quick, you know, there are 2.1 million workers between the ages of 16 and 24 in the state of California. They account for 11.4% of California's 18.9 million labor workforce. The unemployment rate for these young workers increased by 10% over the pandemic, reflecting a 19.3% unemployment rate for these young folks. So this work is really important. We are no longer at this place where we can provide entry-level employment without upward mobility for these young folks. And so we're gonna get into it. We also wanna have a dialogue with you. So we hope that you also will be thinking about your questions for our amazing panelists, who I wanna introduce real quick before we get into our questions. So I wanna introduce Josh Fryday, Chief Service Officer for the Office of Governor Gavin Newsom. I wanna introduce Rosa Garcia, the Executive Director for California Youth Leadership Corps and the Co-Executive Director for Community Learning Partnerships, is that correct? And I want to introduce somebody that honestly does not need any introduction, and that is Jason Bell of Project Rebound, and he's going to tell us about his amazing work too. So can we give it up real quick for our panelists? Thank you. So we want to lift up some state-level innovations in education, employment, and justice reform that are aimed at improving outcomes for opportunity youth. And we want to make some connections between all of the partnerships that are happening, right? So, Josh, good morning.
Good morning.
Can you tell us a little bit about Californians for All Youth Jobs Corps? Yeah, why don't we start there?
Sure, yeah, let's start there. Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you for having me. And for everyone, on behalf of Governor Newsom, welcome to California. We're delighted to have you here and be part of this important conversation. And I love that we started off this morning talking about the solidarity dividend. It's something a close friend of mine, Heather McGee, talks about frequently in her recent book, The Sum of Us. I'm the board chair of an organization called Demos, which Heather ran before writing her book, and it's something that we think a lot about, which is how do we invest in these communities in a way that helps us all, that lifts all of us. And we talk about these programs. You mentioned the Youth Job Corps. It's one of the programs we run that I'll go into more detail on, because we think by investing in these types of programs, it's a win-win-win. It's a win for the individual, it's a win for the community, and it's a win for all of society. And we need to stay focused on the fact that by investing in these programs, everyone does win. Just to take a step back, I'll just be honest for a second. Today was tough to get up. It was tough. I left Sacramento, so I had a lot of time to think on the way down, so you'll have to forgive me. My wife's a fourth grade teacher, and I have a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old. And we're not protecting our kids. We're just not. And I think about what is our job? What is the role of government? Why are we here? And part of what we think about, part of why I have some hope being here today, talking to you all, being with you all, is we have to make sure that we're allowing people to live a meaningful life and to thrive. And I think as we are coming out of this pandemic, you mentioned, we talk about a great resignation. It's really a great reevaluation, a reanalysis of what does it mean to actually live with dignity, live with purpose, live with meaning. And in our office at California Volunteers and Office of the Governor created a cabinet level position for service because he wants us to be thinking about all of us, everyone in California. How do we ensure that people can live a life of dignity, a life of purpose, of connection in community? How do we do that? And we can't do that by just saying we care about that. We have to do that by investing in it. So over the next 2 years in California, because of the governor and the legislature's investments, we're going to be creating over 20,000 service opportunities for young people to receive not just a living wage, but a scholarship for college if they choose, or to help them pay down for debt. That includes, thank you. That includes a brand new College Corps program that's the size of the Peace Corps, helping low-income students graduate debt-free if they commit to a year of service by taking climate action, working in our food banks, tutoring our low-income schools. And for the very first time, and we're making sure that these opportunities are available for absolutely everybody, for the first time in a national service program in California, we're making this program available to our undocumented students.
Yes, yes.
We've also launched the first statewide climate action corps. It's something that we hear talked about in Congress. We hear the Biden administration talking about it. In California, we're doing it. We have hundreds of organizers around the state receiving a job, a stipend, and a scholarship for college to take climate action in their community and to organize and empower their community. And then we've launched what you just discussed and brought up, the Youth Jobs Corps, which is a $185 million program the state of California is investing with nearly 30 cities and counties and communities across the state of California to hire former foster youth, former incarcerated, low-income youth, those who have not been given the opportunity to enter the labor market, not just to give them a job where we mandate and ensure that they receive at least $15 an hour, most of them receiving much more than that, but that they're doing a job that is of service to the community, because we need to send the message to them that we value them, we value their experience, we value what they can contribute, and that we need them. If we're going to solve climate change in this country, in this planet, if we're going to solve homelessness and poverty and all the issues that we're facing, we have to call on our young people to step up, and we got to give them the opportunity, and that takes resources. And that's what we're doing here in California, so we're very proud of that. We have a lot more work to do. We are not close to where we need to be, but we're starting, we're proud of that, and we're excited to be here with you all today to talk about how we do this better. Thank you.
Awesome. Josh, can you highlight some of the innovative programs that cities are developing that you're most excited about?
Yeah, so the way we structured the Youth Jobs Corps is really to make it flexible to work for the community. So we are funding mayor's offices, we are funding counties, we are funding local organizations for them to identify community needs that they have and then to create these service opportunities for young people. And we've allowed flexibility to make sure that we are meeting those community needs. So some of the ones I'm most excited about, for instance, in Riverside, the community's decided that climate change is something they need to focus on, and they specifically want to focus on the desert or the heat islands that exist in their community. And so we are supporting Tree People, which is one of the organizations, and hiring young people to work with Tree People. And we know that, for instance, this issue with regards to tree canopy and planting trees is not just a climate issue. We know it's a racial justice issue. It's a social justice issue. These communities have been underinvested in for decades. And so with this program, we're going to be allowed to hire young people to actually provide the tree canopy that is necessary not just to tackle climate change, but to also tackle some of the heat exhaustion and some of the other environmental issues that these communities are facing. That's one example. Long Beach is doing the same thing. They've created a local climate corps we're very excited about. In Bakersfield, they're creating opportunities for young people to actually work within the city departments, the public works department, to gain the skills in each of those departments, and to have access to the kinds of jobs that a lot of young people, if you can't afford an internship, you just don't get access to that. One of the inspiring conversations I've had is with the mayor of San Diego, Todd Gloria, who has had a long career in public service. He grew up in San Diego, and he said had someone not given him the opportunity to have a public service internship and paid for when he was young, he would have never gone into public service. Yeah. Think about what we would have lost if he would have never gone into public service. We need to create those kinds of opportunities and exposures for our young people throughout the state, and those are the kinds of things that we're excited about with this program.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Rosa, can you talk a little bit about California Youth Leadership Corps and how is the California Youth Leadership Corps supporting Opportunity Youth?
Sure. Thank you, Kriya. First of all, it's such an honor for me to be here in this room. I was here yesterday, and the conversations were so rich and so impactful and moving. So it's just an honor to be here in this room with you all. And so I just wanted to start off by just providing a little bit of context. So Kriya talked about the dramatic impacts of the global pandemic. You know, we know how dramatic that has been, especially for marginalized communities. Also just wanted to add that I lost both of my parents to COVID-19 earlier this year. So I can tell you that it has really had a huge impact on communities of color and marginalized communities in particular. You know, so our program really is a response to this global pandemic, to all of the challenges that young people have been facing in their lives, whether that's losing a job, losing a loved one, whether it's, you know, there are public health issues, as you very well know, gaining access to types of supports for young people at this time is really critical. And so we've been laying the groundwork for Leadership Corps for the last year and a half. I stepped into this role after spending you know, time in Washington, D.C. working on federal higher education policy, you know, expanding opportunities for low-income students. And really what we've done in the past year and a half is we've created community change, learn and earn career pathways for marginalized youth. That includes opportunity youth, low-income youth, immigrant youth, students of color, young people who are living in poverty. And we really are looking for these pathways to transform their lives. We are working in 4 cities. We're working in Los Angeles, we're working in Riverside, we're working in Fresno, we're also working in the Bay Area at De Anza Community College there. And what we're trying to do with these pathways is address a number of issues all at the same time. In yesterday's conversations, what we heard from folks in the room was really that we need holistic strategies to address all of the challenges that Opportunity Youth are facing in their lives at this time. So what our program does is it offers young people career advancement, so it's an educational pathway. We partner with selected community colleges across the state. The labor agency has given us funding for internships. What our young people do is they are in school, they are pursuing a certificate in a career pathway. Those are in leadership and social change, in clean energy planning and development. We have others in public and community health. We are building two new community change career pathways, one in community-based immigration legal services and language justice, which we are very, very excited about. And young people, while they're in school, they are doing an internship with a social justice organization at a community-based organization. So the goal of this program really is to prepare community organizers and change agents to do meaningful work that is beneficial to their communities. Young people are paid a living, well, at least $15 an hour. We would really like to pay them $20 to $25, so we're doing a lot of fundraising to be able to provide them with the resources that they really need to provide for themselves and their families. So that's a critical part of the program. The other thing that our program does is it really taps into what we're seeing around the country, which is young people want to create positive change in their communities, in their local communities. Our young people come from their local communities. That is where we recruit from. We also recruit within the community college, but we also partner with CBOs. There may be young people there that really would benefit from this opportunity. And finally, something that was talked about yesterday in one of the plenaries by the community college presidents is that we provide robust supports for young people. So we really we have infused this idea of having a culture of care, of love for young people within our program, and we'd really like to see institutions of higher education humanize their systems as well. And so that's kind of a systems change that we are looking to really influence with Leadership Core. So anyway, I just want to end by saying that another piece of our program is really about ensuring that once students graduate from our program, that we continue to be connected to them, we continue to support them. We're developing an alumni program, and we also have a career services piece so that young people can get better jobs. They can secure full employment, or they have the option of transferring to a four-year institution, and that we are there to support them in that process. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rosa. So, Jason, Project Rebound is one of the most successful reintegration and higher education programs for formerly incarcerated individuals in California. And it can be hard working with formerly incarcerated young people. Can you talk a little bit about Project Rebound and some of the barriers that the young people you work with face and the journey that you all take with them to keep them engaged?
Definitely. So yeah, the rebound journey has been long and interesting, I have to admit, and I learned a lot. So as a response to California's high recidivism rates, for all of you know what that was about, especially coming through the 90s into the early 2000s, it was really bad. We spent a lot of money in incarceration, but we're pointing our fingers at people continuously going in and right back out. And long before this higher education journey for me, I was formerly incarcerated myself. So I was seeing people leave and come right back while I'm still stuck. And that's a scary thing to see. And you start to realize, what am I trying to rush to get back to, just to come back here? So seeing that it's 79%, that's a huge failure. But we were investing all this money in these lockup institutions. They were popping up like weeds in California. But anyway, Project Rebound was a response to that. Like we got 54 years of this higher education space, and that started from the emeritus late John Irwin, who started it in '67. And I learned about him and his journey from prisoner to PhD while in prison, and I considered myself finally, maybe there was a possibility of going down that road to higher ed and giving it a try, doing all my due diligence to run in the opposite direction. It didn't work. I found myself in a bad space. But in response to that, Rebound has done the work, so I got out, did all of the degrees, and now I'm actually a lecturer at San Francisco State. But the fact of my chance to observe some of the highlights as well as the failures. So we've dealt with a lot of the people that had been written off in California, some of the lifers. Some folks are getting back doing really great things, employed. But I got to also pinpoint the failures. I think with our young folks, that cohort from 17 to 25, we have not done our due diligence. We just cannot seem to hold them. But what I have learned in this observation is that there's some system pieces that we have to call out. And then there's some individual stuff that we have to call out. And that's just the reality of it. We cannot continue to check the box and say, oh, we're doing this and doing that without actually, evaluating it for its success. Because I know one thing, we started to deal a lot with the youth and the youth authority. well, they don't call it the Youth Authority anymore. They call it the DJJ. It's still a state prison for kids,
Absolutely.
basically. But they were getting back with their diplomas, and we're ready to take them in. We're ready to transition them into college, higher education, and they're ready. They think they have everything. But see, what was happening is those same education departments that were checking off that box saying they got education covered for these kids, they never once talked to them about A through G requirements. That's a disservice. And that's a sore spot for me because when I started that journey to higher ed, they told me something similar. I said, I'm 20 years old. I got a whole bunch of years to do. I want to give this college thing a try. No, I said I wanted to give education a try. They said, we got you covered. We have a GED program. Never once did they ask me where I left off with my education. So it's like if people are making these decisions about what is needed without including the voices of these young kids, I think that we're doing a huge failure.
Absolutely.
And that's not equitable, it's not fair, it's not right. I mean, if that's a choice that the kids are able to make, if you put all the cards on the table and say, these are what you need to go to this level, these are the things you need to just get by. If you want to make that choice, that should be on them. I think that's fair, that's how it should work. And I think we really need to call that out. Now things are getting better. This is what I call this reasonable inclusion era after realignment in 2011. People started to somehow wake up around, maybe there's something great about this higher education space and what it can and can do for folks who have been written off. And that goes for all some educators, some political figures, and some what they call correctionists. They said, you know what, maybe we really start including this in that reentry conversation. So it really worked for us. I mean, I have to admit that. And I mean, we were written into the California state budget for expansion. So now we're beyond San Francisco State. There's 15 CSUs that have Rebound now.
15.
So the system, in that sense, is waking up. But as far as the youth go, I think that we have to really address it. I will end on this note. Like in my parole opportunity, when I was able to parole in early 2000, there was what we call a OG, a respectable person behind the wall, asked me on my release date, he said, now, if you get a chance to talk to young people, what are you going to tell them? Now, to be honest, I'm trying to get out of the gate. I didn't have an answer. But I will tell you this, that after paroling, I went to San Francisco State, paid attention to what was happening in the world. Maybe 2 years later, I figured it out. If I had that opportunity to talk to young people, what I would talk to them about, and it was on an individual level, is what I call deferred gratification. That's probably one of the most important lessons we can teach our young folks, because, and it's not all their fault, because we live in a world where everything is instant text messages, microwaves, minute rights, whatever you want. We got it quick. If we can't get it quick, it don't count.
Right.
And they've internalized some of that stuff. So sometimes this education thing, which is super rewarding, and they like it. I'm having these conversations with young folks, and they're saying, I want that for me. But it doesn't come fast enough. And then there's something sexier that comes, and pew, we lose them again. So that's an individual thing. We got to figure out that kind of recipe. And I think over this pandemic, I worked with a solid group of people to figure out a secret sauce of this evolution of Rebound. And I think that we may have the answer in this Rebound Institute idea, but it's going to take a lot of support, especially in the Bay Areas. Alaska's may pull us first. It's a replicable model to deal with that, allow a person to thrive as well as work on long-term goals. And I think that's a part that might help us with this, what they call transitional age youth. So I'm really, I'm only mentioning that to let folks know that we have been thinking about this issue and recognizing our failures, because I would be remiss to just, point fingers at systems and not address where I failed. So I take ownership in that, and I think that that's a huge responsibility of not only Rebound, but other folks who are invested in this work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. So Josh, can you talk a little bit about what else needs to be done at a state level to ensure opportunity youth can continue to live and contribute to their communities?
Yeah, I think on a couple things. one, it's not that complicated. We just got to get more resources in the game. It's simple. You know, you all know the saying, don't tell me your values, show me your budget, and I'll tell you your values. And the truth is, we have to invest in this work. That's what it takes. We got to build the infrastructure to be able to create the opportunities so that people can be exposed to new careers and to new areas. So I think that's part one. And I think part two is a little bit what we talked about before is we have to maybe stop talking about this as we just need to create a job. That because it's so much more than that. It's not just about a job. That's why we created the Youth Job Corps. It's to say it's about our entire community. It's about the health of our entire state, and we have to create jobs where people feel meaning and purpose and dignity and connection. And if we're not doing that, we're missing the boat. Because a job is going to last, 2 months, 6 months, a year, and then it's over. The question is, what did we leave behind in our young people? Do we leave behind a sense of civic engagement? Do we leave behind a sense of empowerment? Do we leave behind a sense of responsibility into your community? And if we can do that, then we've invested in the future. And so I think part of what we're looking at, and that's why the Youth Leadership Institute is so exciting, is thinking about how do we start to expand the definition of a job, and think about this as actually being service, and actually being of necessity to all of us. Like if we invest in more opportunities for our young people, that we can solve climate change, we can solve homelessness, we can solve poverty, we can do those things, and all of us benefit from that. That is the solidarity dividend. And so I think part of it is continuing to have these conversations that redefine what it is we're actually investing in, so that all of us can see ourselves benefiting from that. And Jason, I just got to say, we got to connect the College Corps to what you're doing at these CSUs around the state to make sure that we're connecting the dots on that. That would be awesome. That's exciting.
Anytime. I'm always willing to that.
Thank you. Rosa, you talked about humanizing care.
Yes.
And how this needs to be a core, a core practice amongst higher education, these programs. Can you talk a little bit more about, when you talk about humanizing care, what does that mean for a young person who's, a newcomer, undocumented, struggling? What is humanizing care? What would that look like?
Sure. Well, I can talk about just the way we're trying to build that into a leadership core. And so we really try and create a robust set of supports for young people. So it's academic, that's one piece. It's leadership development, but it's also social emotional supports for young people. One of our sites has a peer mentoring component, which we want to offer to the other sites as well, so that young people feel that they are not going through this journey alone. Within our program, we really try and promote a cohort-based model so that young people are part, they are not doing this alone. They're learning from their peers. We really are striving, and we hope that by the end of the program, that young people, they have really strong relationships with their peers, with faculty members, with the staff that's on the team, and also within those institutions. So we really strive to provide a holistic set of supports that also includes any types of financial supports. For example, yesterday there was a discussion about emergency aid. We've seen that's been a huge need during the global pandemic. That existed before, but it was really highlighted, right? It was amplified during the pandemic. So, if there is, if something happens to a young person, their car breaks down, they're facing a hardship. It's really important for those humanizing cultures and structures to be responsive to those young people, for institutions as a whole and these programs to really center young people, center their lives in a holistic way.
Thank you. So Jason, or Professor Bell. Can you talk about, and don't hold back here, okay? Can you talk about the barriers that still need to be removed in the workforce fields to ensure that opportunity youth, and particularly youth that have experienced the system, incarceration, how can we ensure that their degrees aren't just degrees, right, but that they become careers? What are some of the barriers that we need to remove in the workforce field?
You know, I think a lot of it has to do with, even before the workforce field, I think we have to really listen to our young folk. I mean, sadly, oftentimes when you talk about the experts in this discussion of what's going on with kids, it's always adult doing most of the talking. And I think we need to have coalition with their voices, like, you know, kind of, you know, leading that movement. Like, what are you wanting to see more of in these spaces, in these workforce spaces, or even what are the highest interest in certain areas? I think they need to really have a stake and a voice in it. That's really key to me. So I don't know, you know, specifically if there's any one thing we can put our finger on, but I think that has to happen to do it right. So I don't know if that helped.
Thank you. Well, I want to open it up for any last remarks, any advice for folks that are looking to look to the state to partner and enhance their work of providing young people, disenfranchised young people with opportunities through workforce. Feel free to share your 2 cents.
My 2 cents would be reach out to us. Go to our website, contact us. We're just getting started with a lot of this work. This is a huge passion of Governor Newsom's and something that he believes really strongly in. And so we're starting some of these programs that you're hearing about, but we're just getting going. So we need your partnership. We want to work with you. We need to work with you. We want to support you in the incredible work that's happening on the ground already, and making sure that these resources that we are starting to invest are being spent in the right way and reaching the right people. So please reach out to us. Our website's californiavolunteers.ca.gov. Let us know if we can work with you, if we can partner with you. And also, we have, I would just say the last thing that we could use help with as we're launching the Youth Jobs Corps, the College Corps, the Climate Corps. These are new programs and new incredible opportunities, and we need help getting the word out. Because a lot of young people don't know that they exist yet because they're brand new. And so just helping us spread the word that these opportunities exist and making sure that it's the people that are most vulnerable, most at risk, that we're making sure know that these opportunities exist would be incredibly helpful.
Awesome, thank you. Rosa, Josh?
Sure. We're looking to expand to 20 to 25 community colleges across the state. And the state, we're really hoping the state is going to make more investments in our program in the next 5 years. But we, so we're going to be in other cities across the state, other regions. I'm happy to speak to anyone to share more about our work. But we love developing partnerships with social justice organizations. So if there are organizations that are interested in hosting our young people, please feel free to reach out. Or if you want to learn more about our model, we're super excited about the work we are doing. And we really want to engage more partners.
Awesome, thank you.
And then with us, we were definitely interested in always developing replicable models. And if folks are into that, please reach out to Rebound. We want to do that with you. And please know that in 2023, that some of these DJJ facilities will be closing down. So young people will be coming back to the different counties all over the place. And if you're interested in finding those different supports for them, reach out to us on that level too.
Awesome. Can we give it up again for our panelists? So now it's time for you all to dialogue and reflect. So we want you to turn to your table mates, and we want you all to have a short discussion about what resonated with you and our speakers, things that they said. What do you want to learn more about? And what questions do you have for them? We'd like to open it up to questions from the audience for our panelists. And is Humberto Palacio here? Palacios here? All right. So let's open it up with some questions. Humberto,
Good morning, everyone. Can you guys hear me?
your mic is not on, I think.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank all of you guys for coming here. I'm a California native, so, welcome to California. And I have a question. It's for any of you guys, if you guys can answer it. During the past several years, homelessness has significantly increased in the state of California. As you guys know, you probably just walk down the street and you probably notice that challenge that's going on in this community. And many of the people that are being affected are opportunity youth. So my question to any of you guys actually is, what are you currently doing or what are you planning to do to mitigate that growing crisis in the state of California? Thank you.
What's the question?
So the question was, what are you all doing to mitigate homelessness or being able to support homeless youth who definitely fall in line under the Opportunity Youth umbrella and most likely are doubly impacted, right, oftentimes?
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, it's an issue that we're very concerned about. The governor has said it many, many times as his top priority. We've made billion-dollar investments over the last couple of years, record-level investments, and we're going to keep doing that. It's a huge issue, and it's why these programs, like we talked about, these Jobs Corps are so important. It's because we have to create opportunities where people see themselves launching a successful career, where they're supported. And they're supported not just with a job and a paycheck, but they're supported with some of the things we heard about with leadership skills, with job training, and other support services. So that's built into our program, that those support services are built around. So again, it's not just a paycheck, it's everything that goes with it. So you have the support to succeed and to be launched on a career. We had a side conversation about making sure that just because we get someone in the door, that doesn't end the opportunity. That's the beginning of their opportunity journey, and then we're creating successful pathways. We're launching careers, and hopefully keeping people off the streets. But it's going to continue to be a top priority for our governor.
Yeah, at least 2 of our sites, I can say, and we're still ramping up, are partnering with organizations to ensure that we recruit young people who are in those situations, who are experiencing homelessness, so that they can benefit from these educational opportunities and these supports. But we want to be very intentional about our work, and as we scale up, we are looking to partner with more organizations that are actually looking to address issues of homelessness in terms of what their mission is.
And then with Rebound, like I mentioned, the evolution of Rebound and this Rebound Institute idea does include housing for the groups that we feel like we have not done our due diligence with, is the transitional age youth and the women of incarcerated. I think there's lack of services for them, so we're really going to try to step up our game for them, as well as the Fed reentry is really lacking. Federal people paroling from the federal system. So it is included. Housing is definitely included in that discussion.
Thank you, Humberto, for your question. Anyone else?
Good morning, Sean from Seattle. I had a question. California has similar living wage issues than we do in Seattle. And $15 an hour isn't as compelling in the primary economy as what some of the young people can get in the secondary economy, where more of the illicit activities occur. So my question is, as we position young people as opportunity youth, and we talk about the opportunity we're creating, some of the young people are asking, well, opportunity for who? Because at $15 an hour, that still leaves me in a position where I have to hustle to make up the difference and I'm spending all my hustling hours now working in this particular vocation, that doesn't necessarily give me a through line where I could benefit ultimately and begin to build wealth. And so, like, as we begin to lean into this economy that has inflation at an all-time high, how do we assure that the wages that we're attributing to the labor that young people are producing are being honored in a way that allows them to thrive and not just barely get by?
You want to take it?
Yeah, sure. So that's a really great point. Those are conversations that we've been having internally in terms of our particular program. One of our sites, the board, the community college board, the system actually increased it to $19.87 an hour. At another site, they're paying at least $18 an hour. What we would really like to see is our young people earn at least $20 to $25 an hour. So it is an issue, absolutely, and it's one that we're working on. But the cost of gas has increased. We know that the cost of living in California is very high. So we are trying to respond to that.
I think the only thing I would add, because it's an incredibly important point, is in addition to everything that was just stated, it's why creating specific opportunities in places like local government, state government, nonprofits, where these opportunity youth wouldn't normally have access to is so critical. Because we can create and our hope is, we can create a career pathway by exposing a young person who wouldn't normally, like I said, maybe it doesn't sound sexy, but a job at Publix work in a city can lead to a very successful, stable, thriving career. But you got to create that opportunity to get in the door in the first place. And it just doesn't exist right now in too many places. And that's what we're trying to break down, and we're trying to open those doors. And I think we hopefully gonna have a lot of success doing that.
Jason, did you have a response?
Yeah, that conundrum is beyond me. I mean, all we can do is offset it with a lot of the basic needs support that won't cost our folks that are involved in our program, because that stuff sucks up a whole bunch of your income. Getting new glasses and things like that. So we kind of pride ourselves on being there to take that on and take that weight off of folks who are building on their long-term goals.
Well, I want to take actually a facilitator liberty and want to answer the question as well. So I come from, was a young person that experienced the system when I was younger, got connected with an amazing organization called the Young Women's Freedom Center here in San Francisco. The question that you ask is a question we asked many, many years ago when I was still hustling across the street from the place where I worked. And for a long time, even when I was I started in 1993 and was making $8.50 an hour, which was double the minimum wage at the time. We now have raised that to $20 to $21, depending on the position at our organization. We're very intentional about taking half of the young people that most programs take to employ them, because we want to go deep with them and we want to provide them with meaningful opportunities in their communities, so that they're not just getting connected to the money piece of things,
right,
but they're getting reconnected to their community, right? Mm-hmm. Which gives you a better sense of maybe I shouldn't be doing this here, right? The other piece of that is that, unfortunately the onus becomes on the organizations locally. And we actually take, we raise funds so that we can take that 15 and we can increase it to 20 and add a 5 on, right? Through the money that we're leveraging from foundations and other things. And so, is that the answer? No, because we shouldn't have to, right? But I think it's important to say that, we want our young people to thrive too, and that requires, unfortunately, for us to hustle as well, right? Now, we have an opportunity to talk to folks that are building these programs out on a statewide level, and I think that that's something folks need to know, right? That we're hustling too to make sure that our young people are able to live, you know, these lives that are meaningful, and literally survive. Young people aren't living yet, right? Until they're making a livable wage that increases their quality of life and gives them choice about that. So I took the liberty, I know I probably shouldn't have, but felt like, you know, I wanted to respond to that because that's, since, you know, I have not, our organization has been around for 28 years, and we have still not found state funding, right, that's able to compare to what we can offer our young folks.
Hey, thanks everybody. Steve Patrick with the Aspen Forum. I have a question for each of you on the panel. So, Josh, it's really amazing how you're moving public dollars in a really strategic way around these different cores. Some of what you talked about was targeting communities that so often don't get access to those public dollars. They may not have extra grant writers. You named Riverside, a number of communities that are sort of not the Bay Area in LA, for example. So can you talk about how you navigated the red tape to target those dollars to those specific places? And I know even some rural communities were intentionally included, and I'd just love to hear how you did that in state government, because I think that's pretty powerful. And then Rosa, I wonder if you would just touch on the national work, because you're both a California-based organization, but you're housed in an organization that's trying to spread this pathway in post-secondary nationally. Could you just talk about a little bit about that, if you don't mind? And then lastly, and then I know we're gonna have to extend the time of the plenary for all these questions, so I apologize. But Jason, you talked about the A through G curriculum, not getting it when you were a young man coming out, and that young people aren't getting that coming out of the juvenile jails, juvenile justice system. A through G is that curriculum that you have to be able to go to the four-year institutions in California. So we've heard nationally that California is kind of a model for higher education inside. So San Quentin just actually got accredited. They have their own college now, first one in the country. So, and there are other examples of pretty good, we hear, education for those who are on the inside. Will you just speak to what you're seeing there? Is there more preparation? Is there some hope now for the kind of frame you were saying we needed more of? And I'm just curious about what you're seeing for the folks who are coming out, both in the youth and in the adult system. So you can keep them short, I apologize, but obviously you guys are inspiring and I couldn't resist. Thanks.
You want me to start? Well, yeah, definitely the in-college programs that you talked about, we work hand in hand with them. Some of the Rebound sites are going in custody to do accredited program. But Mount Tam, Jody Lewin, the president, we work for a long time, the best suited people to leave the gate and step on any college campus, hands down. I mean, they're prepared. There's not much coaching that has to take place, so that's happening. But with the kids in this public school system, that part we still need to work on, because there's a lot of assumptions being made and they're really behind the curve. But you're right, California, doing this higher education where I go in this, what they call NCHEP, National Higher Education Incarceration Group, that I see people from all over the U.S., and they're 12 years behind California. They're coming to me, I'm helping UNLV now, Seattle, University of Washington, Tacoma, and I started with Rutgers in New Jersey because of the work here in California. So you're right, we are pioneers in this work, but there's still some nuances that need a little bit of attention.
Yeah, so I think you had a couple of questions for me. So I work for the Community Learning Partnership. So it's a national network of community studies, community change studies programs. And we've been around for over a decade. And so I just want to talk about how that work intersects with Leadership Corps. Leadership Corps is an initiative of the Community Learning Partnership. And what we've really done is taken the best practices of community organizing programs in these other states that we have partners in, and so we've included those principles, that experience that we know of what works in terms of training young people to be community organizers and change agents into our curriculum. So as we're scaling up here in California, in our pilot sites, we are sharing those best practices and those program materials and all of that rich wisdom and experience that we've learned over the last 10 years. Yeah.
And thank you, Steve, and thank you for bringing us all together today. Really fun, and appreciate your leadership throughout many decades on these issues. So the question was about why and how did we make sure that the resources that were allocated and that we were able to secure were invested in parts of the state that for too long have been underinvested. And it starts, I would say, one, from the top, leadership. The governor made a commitment when he was elected to invest in places that haven't been invested for too long. The Central Valley, the Empire, and many parts of our state. And so this is where I think it matters when we're talking about allocating public resources and where we're investing. It matters how you design and how you think about things from the very beginning. And we were lucky that we were able to, when we were designing this program, the California Youth Job Corps, we were able to do it in partnership with one of my partners in crime and good friend, former Mayor Michael Tubbs, who's also an advisor to the governor on issues of the economy and opportunity, and to make sure at the outset that we were designing this to invest not just in urban areas, so we picked the biggest 13 cities in California, which include not just places like LA and San Francisco, but include places like Bakersfield and Fresno and Riverside, but to also make sure that a portion of the money was allocated specifically for smaller rural communities and places that also too often are underinvested. So it's about making sure that when we are creating these programs from the very beginning, they are literally designed in terms of intention to be supporting the communities that need the most investment.
And I think we have time for one last question.
Aloha, Sean Kanai'aupuni. Thanks so much for your comments this morning. I'm from Hawaii. And just wondering, how do you support in your programs Indigenous and Native peoples with the different kinds of services and programming that you do? Kind of a broad question. And also cultural and linguistic diversity.
I got that. Interestingly enough, one of the new Rebound sites in Humboldt, one of the program directors is on the Yurok tribe, the head council to bring in is more students because they realize the suffering that's happening on that reservation up there. It looks like 80% of the folks that are going into their county jail are from the Native communities. So we've tried to step up and really be present in that space too. So that's happening currently.
Yeah, I'll just say that we're very proud. We just announced last week with our Climate Action Corps, we're supporting 45 organizations across the state that are doing work in frontline communities around climate action. And for the first time, we're investing with 2 tribes to create the capacity and support here in California. So we're starting a ton more work that we need to do. But I think it comes to the question also how are we creating the cultural competencies around this. It's making sure that we're investing in the communities that haven't been invested for too long. And it just takes us being intentional from the very beginning. And that's why I said we're just getting started, a lot more to do, but proud with where we're starting.
We're in the process of partnering with organizations across the state as we scale up. As I said, we only have 5 sites now, but we want to scale. So really being intentional about partnering with organizations that serve Indigenous communities. Within one of our new career pathways in language justice, we are looking to co-design the curriculum with community-based organizations that are led by Indigenous leaders from Latin America, and that's part of our language justice career pathway.
my friends, let's give it up for our panelists one more time. I also want to let you all know before I bring Monique up that if you all want to hear more from directly impacted folks who are in higher education and want to talk to their own success or talking about their own success from the prison to school pipeline, you can attend the Unlocking New Futures workshop in Pacific A, and that's next. And with that, I would like to bring up Monique. Thank you all for being an amazing audience, and I hope that you all enjoy the rest of the convening.
Yes, please show them some love. Please show them some love. Yes, come on. We want them to feel the love of our network as they talk about accessibility, inclusivity. Thank you to our panelists. So I want to, before we transition into breakouts, team planning time, and then our closing plenary, I want to invite one of the young adult leaders from our network to come up and share some spoken word. I feel like many of you probably, if you didn't previously know her before joining us yesterday, but you were here with us, then you probably have a sense, not just of some of her values, but maybe most importantly, some of her vision for what our future should look like. She spoke from her heart so passionately yesterday about the importance of mental health and healing, and really reminded us of how important it is to center that right now in real time as we reflect on the news from yesterday, news from today, but also just long term as we continue to build and support the next generation of leaders. So I say that as a way of introducing Jocelyn Gama. She is with Urban Strategies Council, and I'd like to invite you on stage now. Please share your art, your heart, and your light with our network.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much, Monique. I really appreciate it. Yes, my name is Jocelyn Gama. It is an honor for me to be here because I really believe that creative expression is a way for us to heal, and I'm a huge advocate for healing because I feel that we all really need that. And so this poem is called "What Do You Stand For?" because you must stand for something, or if not, you'll fall for anything. And I'm about to begin. I ask you one thing. What do you stand for? I can tell you many. I stand for love, the purest and highest vibration one can feel. I stand for collective liberation, the liberation the Constitution promised us, but leaves us stranded every time we demand for today's justice. And we as us, we as the essential workers working in the front lines, we as the undocumented immigrants working tirelessly with no immunity, we as the Black Lives Matters movement, we as the million individuals incarcerated doing free labor, we as the dreamers, we as the future generation that sell us hope and maintain the hope today, we as us who stand in faith today and dismantle fear right now. What do you stand for? I stand with the farm workers whose hands touch rainy grass and smoky winds and pick your fruits that was prepared for your fresh salad today. I stand with undocumented individuals that work tirelessly on stolen land, where my ancestors planted seeds to flourish, but aimed to be buried by the oppressor's activity. As Dano said, quisieron enterrarnos, pero se les olvidó que somos semillas. They tried and continue to bury our voice, but don't know we're magical seeds. I stand with the Black Lives Matter movement, the movement that walked the streets filled in rage from Oakland to the Pacific Sea, the emotion begging for human decency, only demanding for human justice. So I ask you, do you cherish us? Are you proud of Americans' origins? Do you see most bliss or misery? What do you stand for? I stand with one nation that seems to be at crossroads, but in the end of the tunnel, there's so much light that the soul can consume. For a better day, because today is tomorrow for the brave. How brave are you to create the foundations of life, liberation, and the pursuit of happiness today? With the glory of guidance, the clouded, coated atmosphere, I can see beyond the stratosphere. The rivers are our veins, so the efforts that we make will never, ever go in vain. Stand with me, I am in the new that you see. Stand with me and amplify my voice. Stand with C because I can see a greener economy through the eyes of the adolescents. By giving us the mic for the world to see, raising our vibration nation to nation. Don't resist my demands. Assist me with a mountain of hope, like the mountains that my parents crossed with hope, from Mexico to Oakland for me to step a foot in this nation. Stand with me because me is we. Stand with me because we have the courage to speak and the faith to lead. And please, let's be the change that we all want to see. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'll let you all go.